Hello, my name is Tina Sammons, and this is my final assignment for my AEP 855 Educational Leadership class. The assignment was based off of articles on race, class, access, gender, and equity. I used a variety to make sure I covered all my bases since I am going into educational leadership. The first article I read was titled Educators Can Combat the Deeper Learning Race Problem by G.H. Wrong. There were two huge ideas in it that I honed onto that really spoke to me. The first one was educators have power in the classroom and they should remember these two big ideas. First, they must look at their own power, assumptions, and biases to help understand powerful negative consequences that they might bring to the classroom. Self-reflection is huge, and being able to do that adequately and then adjust based off of the needs of your students is super important. The second big idea was teachers must reach out and develop real relationship with their students. Ways that teachers can reach out: ask lots of questions to understand who they are and where they are coming from. Make conversation personal and individual and interactive conversations. Every day in my class, I spend 10 minutes asking the students about what they did the previous night or things that they look forward to. It gives me a connection. I can talk to them outside of class, find them outside of class, and build that powerful relationship no matter their race. The second article I read was entitled Nation Falls Far Short on Education Equity Data Show by Michelle McNeil and Evie Vlad. It was filled with tons and tons of data showing the inequities among races. But the big question that it was targeted around was, is the nation push for educational equity in college and career readiness for all students really working? Statistics are showing that students with minorities are not being offered the same higher level classes than other high schools offer and often have inexperienced or unqualified teachers. Schools must report discipline, teacher equity, early education, and college and career readiness, and then the data is broken down by race, ethnicity, sex, disability, and English language learners' status to examine disparities across K-12. The discrepancies are showing up in all of these, and as I said, the article was full of data that was interesting, yet so many facts to try and put in a short slideshow. But in order to help with the discrepancies, the school needs to be held accountable and should drive students' achievement and rigor in the classroom. So the accountability piece is being built, but at this point there is proof that the educational equity is not there, and the reports that schools are turning in are showing this. The third article that I read has a very interesting title, which is why I picked it up. It was called The Yellow School Bus, A Model for Equity by Peter W. Cookson Jr. And it talked about how the school bus got its color in 1939 at a teacher conference, and it became a collective symbol of hope and optimism in education. Today, there are approximately 480,000 school buses serving around 25 million kids every day. And the article went on to talk about the importance of the school bus and how the school bus provides all of these opportunities that are equal for students. But it talked about 4 points to regain the community and shared responsibility of education that seem to have been lost. First, funding for affluent students versus poor children, it isn't equal, and the same services aren't available to the poor. For example, technology, higher level classes, and teacher quality, which I mentioned in the previous article. It spoke highly about the fact that Algebra 1 and I at this point can't remember the other class, but are not offered in many schools, which is not allowing for students to be college and career readiness. The second one was curriculum is exclusionary and class-based, and it should look multi-class curriculum that cuts across social classes and connects them to one another. Rather than separating people out, we should really work on how gender and race and ethnicity should all go together and connect them so that the children can see how our world all connects. And then the third one was actually my favorite part of the article. It talked about the fact that education should be put back in the hands of the teachers, the people who practice and use it daily. So many decisions are being made by people who have never stepped foot in the classroom and they have no clue, making it very difficult to make sure that we are providing the equal education that all students deserve. And then finally, another one that's huge right now, testing creates tension and class division, and we should allow for teacher creativity and flexibility. And due to the rigor of the tests and all of the amounts of data that we are using or trying to use in our classrooms, there is tension among staff, there's tension among students, and the anxiety level is huge, and we just need to figure out a better way to make it equal. The fourth article that I talked about, or that I read, was called A Candid Talk to Teacher Educators about Effectively Preparing Teachers Who Can Teach Everyone's Children by Carl A. Grant and Maureen Gillett. This one was interesting because to me it talked about the importance of getting teachers ready in the educational setting and the importance of showing them the diversity that they will encounter in a classroom. The diversity must come at the higher level for teachers to be culturally ready to accept any teaching job. Too often, the teachers are white. But this was a crazy statistic that I pulled out. 29% of teachers leave teaching after 3 years. 39% of them leave after 5 years. And this one's very sad, but so true, especially with all of the rigor of Common Core and all that stuff that's coming down. Teachers leave the profession at a higher rate than any other profession. Why? One reason might be colleges must be more clear and direct about the knowledge, skills, and dispositions of candidates that they are selecting for the education career. There needs to be a belief that all students can achieve and hold high expectations for all learners. Teachers must build a community of learners in the classroom and connect with student families. Having that connection outside of the classroom is huge. Be learners themselves and vary instruction to meet the needs of students. Realize that there are multiple ways to get to the number 13 or to get to an answer in anything as long as you can verify what you're doing. You need to know the students have a wealth of skills and knowledge and use these in their teaching. And of course, be willing to go introspective about themselves in their teaching, monitor their beliefs and actions for bias and prejudice, and be unafraid to teach about the isms. So in other words, you've got to get to know your students. Those isms are difficult, and you might want to watch your boundaries and let your administrator know what's going on. But in order to have a culturally responsive teacher and students, these things need to happen. This article also talked about how teachers must be open-minded, wholehearted, and responsible. The content, knowledge, and the pedagogical expertise are not enough. You have to have more than just that. Teachers have to be aware of how students develop physically, socially, and cognitively. This can be done by research or talking to experienced or veteran teachers. Teachers must have positive self-concept within the community and give back to the community. In other words, they have to be willing to work with those around them. Teachers need to know that content is important, but the delivery of the lesson is an art. Know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. Teachers must use multiple lenses and use data to improve practice and learning. If you know that your students are kinesthetic learners, do some learning that allows their bodies to move. If they're bigger on working as an individual, do those kind of activities. You've got to know your students. And finally, teachers have to be reflective, but not just a mirror. Be willing to find the problem, fix the problem, develop altering plans, and try multiple times to make sure all students learn. It's not easy to say, hey, my lesson failed, but the only people not benefiting from that are the students. And the final article that I read was just an inspiring article, and it was called Inspiring Teacher, Her Race to the Top by Chris Collin. And this was about Tamara Douglas, and she lived a story of racial tension due to attending school not long after the desegregation order of 1976. At that time, many blacks were thought of as incapable and incompetent. However, due to one teacher, what one teacher said, her whole outlook on life changed. Her teacher said, "You owe it to your race to stay in this class. Buckle down because you're not dropping out." That made her realize she could be successful. Her story goes on, and she now teaches in that same school, and she has won the Horace Mann Educator of the Year award. She walked the shoes of a person who was discriminated against, and she learned the importance of a quality teacher. Teachers must take time to enforce the rules, yet build positive, caring relationships. This is my works cited page. I pulled articles from the Education Week. I went to the Fort Hays State Library and pulled them off of the Forsyth Library, and I also found one on Edutopia. And on a final note, today I had to attend a funeral of a 15-year-old girl who was killed in a rollover car accident this week. And in one of their speeches, they talked about the importance of her teachers and how they encouraged her to do all that she could do. And that, to me, was very powerful and a good way to wrap up this assignment. Thanks. I hope you enjoyed my assignment.